The $1.2 billion collapse of Prime.
The most hyped sports drink ever was always destined to fail. Logan Paul and KSI built a $1.2 billion empire, and now it's collapsing in front of everyone. Profits are down over 90%, suppliers are suing, and the lies keep piling up. But here's the twist. Prime didn't collapse because of taste, price, or even the lawsuit.
I feel like it did collapse because of taste, right? Because if everybody loves Prime, then they would continue to buy it. But then if you buy Prime and you don't like it as much as Gatorade or Powerade or one of the other aids, well, then you would not buy it. It's like the drink Alani Nu, if you've seen that. That was created by some other influencer. Yeah, this one. This is like the classic. Everybody loves the witch's brew. But Alani Nu was created by an influencer who then used their platform to get it started. But then it tasted so good, and I'm devastated to report that it does actually taste good. It tasted so good that people continued to buy it afterwards. But every video I saw of Prime, people just said it tasted fine or not that great, and it wasn't worth it. And Gatorade and Powerade were better.
It collapsed because of a billion-dollar mistake hiding in plain sight. The question is, what was that mistake, and how did two YouTubers convince millions of people to fight over colored water in plastic bottles? This isn't just the story of a failed drink, it's proof hype can build a billion-dollar business, but without fundamentals, it always collapses. And the lesson Prime ignored is the difference between a fleeting fad and a lasting brand. But to understand how Prime pulled off one of the most spectacular rise and falls in beverage history, we need to go back to where it all began. The year is 2022. The influencer economy is in full swing, TikTok is dominating youth culture, and two YouTubers who built their careers on manufactured drama are about to launch what appears to be the perfect product. Logan Paul and KSI had 50 million followers and a rivalry that broke the internet, but
And specifically, not only did they have a bunch of followers, but they also had a cult-like following. At that point, Logan had been through more controversies than you could possibly count, so the people that stuck with him through that, they were not going anywhere no matter what he did. I mean, he had been through his boxing controversy, all of the fights he had had with other people, the forest incident, rug pulls, crypto scams, etc., etc. So anyone who had stuck around was going to follow him into wherever he went next. And this case, he went to sports drinks, and so that's where people went. I'm sure other huge influencers could try to build a brand, but if people don't care about them personally, then it just wouldn't work.
Experience in beverages. Gatorade was built by scientists, Body Armor by nutritionists, and Prime, well, it was built by entertainers betting they could out-hype the experts. And here's what most people missed. They were entering the single most competitive market in the beverage industry, sports drinks, against giants who had spent decades building unshakable positions. Their mindset was simple. We can beat Gatorade with influence, kids will buy anything with our faces on it, and if we aim high enough, we'll launch the first influencer-backed sports drink and make billions.
All of that's not necessarily incorrect, right? Because that's how they built their careers, was off the backs of kids supporting them with stuff. The idea was really good if the execution was poorly handled.
However, instead of following conventional beverage industry wisdom, they made three decisions that seemed brilliant at the time, but contained the seeds of their own destruction. First, they partnered with Congo Brands, the company behind 3D energy drinks, while presenting Prime as if it was their own creation. Second, they launched with artificial scarcity, creating manufactured urgency instead of building sustainable demand. And thirdly, they positioned themselves against established giants without creating their own category. Behind the hype was a simple truth. Prime wasn't born in a lab or a locker room. It was repackaged from an existing energy drink and then positioned against Gatorade's 50-year head start. And that raises the question, if Prime was truly revolutionary, why hide who really made it? Marketing lesson number one, when you can't win on substance, manufacture perception. Here's where Prime showed their strategy. They knew they couldn't compete on product innovation or quality, so they positioned Prime not as a better liquid, but as a better identity. The customer wasn't buying hydration, they were buying membership in Logan and KSI's world. Look at the design choices. Loud, YouTube ready.
I mean, that's essentially what Feastables is, right? Like, you're not necessarily buying it because it's chocolate, you're buying it because it's Mr. Beast's chocolate. You're buying into his vision of a world where chocolate is manufactured and distributed differently. I honestly can't think of any other influencer brands right now, but usually what you're doing is you're buying into the influencer and into the brand that the influencer represents, not necessarily the product itself.
Colors, Logan and KSI's pictures are front and center, packaging that look more like a gaming skin than a sports drink. Every detail screamed this wasn't made for athletes, it was built for kids on the internet. The hydration category was a bit archaic. We saw an opportunity to make a great product that was a better for you product. Logan Paul in 2023. They literally designed a beverage brand based on the psychology of social signaling, and initially it worked exactly as planned.
Isn't that what most brands are? Like, that's kind of what Red Bull's done, right? Red Bull's associated with like extreme sports because they sponsor people doing insane stunts all of the time. And a lot of the times the people are buying into the brand that Red Bull has created, not necessarily Red Bull itself, because hot take, Red Bull tastes so bad. I am not even a sports drink hater. I love me some Monster, but oh my God, I cannot drink Red Bull. It just tastes like a cherry flavored medicine.
Creating buzz around rebranded energy drinks was just the start. Prime needed to establish itself as the must-have item for Gen Z. Instead of traditional advertising, Prime created a brilliant but dangerous strategy focused entirely on manufactured urgency. But here's the crucial part. They weren't creating real scarcity, they strategically engineered shortages to trigger what psychologists call loss aversion. Limited drops that sold out in minutes, strategic restocks timed with Logan and KSI's content, exclusive flavors available only during hype cycles, school bans that made Prime feel forbidden, and reseller markets where these bottles sold upwards of $50 each.
The resale market was absurd to me. And it almost seemed like an unintended consequence. There's this thing called the Cobra effect, where if you do something, you hope for a specific outcome, but then the Cobra effect is when the opposite of that outcome happens. In this case, it seems like they were hoping to make people really excited for the next Prime drop, and then all they did was make it really expensive. Because imagine if Prime, the company, was able to charge these $50 for cases. The amount of money that was lost in the secondary market because people were scalping it, I'm sure is like untold millions or tens of millions. That's a lot of money that Prime missed out on because they miscalculated the amount of hype they could manufacture versus how much money they would lose from people not buying from them, but buying from scalpers.
Each of these tactics exploited teenage psychology. If everyone wants it and you can't have it, you want it even more. And the hype didn't stay online. Prime became the official sports drink of Arsenal FC and the UFC. Arsenal branded bottles sold out instantly and queues formed outside UK supermarkets. Even mainstream outlets like the BBC and Guardian reported chaotic sellouts, long lines, and school bans. Prime had broken out of Logan and KSI's bubble. It was now a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Marketing lesson number 2. Artificial scarcity creates real demand, temporarily. But here's what Prime discovered about manufactured urgency. It has an expiration date. When scarcity is artificial, eventually supply catches up with manufactured demand. In marketing, the illusion of exclusivity and scarcity works wonders. Controlled urgency. If you're hard to come by, if your time is limited, your stock automatically goes up, dia Poirier. The question is, what happens when the artificial becomes obvious? This brings us to Prime's most sophisticated and ultimately fatal strategy, identity-based consumption. Prime understood something that traditional beverage companies missed. Gen Z doesn't just buy products, they buy identity signals.
I knew Prime was cooked the second I came across Prime in Aldi being sold for 99 cents. I buy essentially exclusively from Aldi. And let me tell you, there's not a single brand in Aldi that you're like, oh yeah, that's an identity. No, it's Prime being sold for 99 cents at the cheapest retailer in the United States. If that was not a signal that the brand was getting cooked, I don't know what was.
Marketing lesson number 3. When products are commodities, sell identity transformation. While Gatorade focused on athletic performance and Powerade pushed hydration science, Prime was selling something entirely different: social status among kids who live online. The data reveals Prime's true strategy. It was marketed as a sports drink, but its real audience was teens and young adults. This wasn't about athletic performance, it was about social performance. And here's the marketing data from Prime. The real audience, 52.6% of KSI's fans and nearly half of Logan's fans, are 18 to 24 years old, Prime's core buyers. The buying motivation: teams bought Prime to flex online, trading bottles at school and reselling them for $20 to $50 a bottle. The usage context: Prime appeared more in schools, cafeterias, and TikToks than in gyms. And finally, the premium pricing: Prime sold for over $3 a bottle in the US, 2 to 3 times that of Gatorade or Powerade.
2 or 3 times? What makes them think that they could justify that price for what is essentially another sports drink? Essentially just another flavored sugar water. Most scientists will tell you that unless you're doing like extreme sports in the heat outside, you actually don't need to replenish your electrolytes. And it's almost entirely based on hype marketing. If you're doing intense weightlifting, basically none of the time do you ever need to do it. It's fascinating to me that Prime really leaned into this specific sports rehydration thing.
By 2023, Prime was generating over $1.2 billion in revenue and nearly triple the price of traditional sports drinks. This wasn't marketing, this was masterful psychology manipulation. Products are made in a factory, but brands are created in the mind, Walter Landor. But identity-based marketing has a fatal flaw. What happens when the identity shifts? What happens when the cultural moment passes? This brings us to Prime's billion-dollar.
I mean, is anything that has a hyped moment will also have a moment where people kind of don't care anymore. Think of Be Real. It was the social media app to be on in like 2022 or 2023. And then the moment kind of passed. People didn't really care anymore. It was interesting. It was fun. And then nothing new happened with Be Real. So people just moved back to what they were familiar with. I think it's the same with Prime. Plus, you also have to realize that if 70% of your audience is kids under the age of like 16, then their parents are going to be the ones making the decisions. And if their parents are like, actually, you're pretty obsessed with this sugar water drink that I've heard bad things about, they're not going to buy them the drink anymore. You have to market to the parents and the kids.
Strategic blunder, the mistake that doomed them from day one, breaking the law of category. If you can't be first, you must create a new category. Red Bull didn't compete with Coke or Pepsi, it invented the energy drink category and dominated it. Prime, by contrast, forced itself into the toughest category in beverages, sports drinks. Gatorade owned performance, Powerade owned hydration, Body Armor owned healthy, every angle was already taken. With no category of its own, Prime had nothing to stand on but celebrity hype. Marketing lesson number 4. Category kings are nearly impossible to dethrone. If you can't be first in a category, set up a new one you can be first in. Al Ray's and Jack Trout, advertising executives. Prime never created its own category. It tried to squeeze into one already owned by giants. For a while, hype disguised the mistake, creating the illusion of unstoppable momentum. But the real question is, how long can hype outrun strategic positioning? And by 2024, the answer became brutally clear: not long. The numbers told a devastating story that revealed the hollowness behind the hype. And here's Prime by the numbers.
I feel like he's not really emphasizing the fact that basically no YouTube video I watched did the people actually like the drink. Personal anecdote, every time I drive long distances, I get sleepy. And so what I do is I would usually get a coffee or a Coke or something with caffeine to keep me awake. Then one day I decided to try energy drinks. I tried a bunch of them. They were fine. And then I came across Monster and I absolutely loved Monster. It tasted so good. And so I stuck with Monster. I stopped buying the other ones that I was because Monster was my favorite. I think it could have been the same thing with Prime, where if it tasted really good and people liked it outside of the brand that it was, then they would have stuck with it. But I have to suspect that once the hype died and people were just not as particularly interested in being a pawn in KSI's money game, that they moved back to whatever they were familiar with. Gatorade, Powerade, Body Armor, some others. Like, they created a profoundly mediocre product that only worked for as long as it did because of who they were. After the hype ends, it has to be able to stand on something else, but it had nothing else to stand on. And definitely not the flavor, because again, nobody liked it.
The UK sales dropped 70% in 2024, the profits collapsed 91.6% year over year, supplier lawsuits alleging inflated projections, Prime banned in many UK schools over health concerns, and the loss of 63.1 million euros in absolute value gain in 12 months, the largest drop of any food and drink brand in 2024. Refresco, Prime's bottler, sued for $67.7 million after Prime failed to meet its promised order volumes, leaving Refresco stuck with costly production built on hype-driven forecasts. Hype is the sugar high of marketing. It spikes fast and crashes hard if you don't have the substance to sustain it. Mark Ritson.
It is crazy that Prime did not have a financial advisor that was like, hey, you shouldn't put out projections based purely on how your first year of sales go and then sign contracts based on that. In what world is it a good idea to sign contracts based on something that you can't guarantee? That's such a bad idea. They must have not had a single CFO that was willing to step in and tell them that it was a horrible idea.
2024, TikTokers who'd once fought over Prime were showing bottles collecting dust. Meanwhile, Gatorade continued its steady dominance without acknowledging Prime's existence. When you own a category, you don't need to respond to pretenders. Time eliminates them for you.
Yeah, but I would bet anything that Gatorade made a buyout offer to Prime and then Prime refused it. I mean, that's just what companies do. If anybody comes along that even might threaten their market dominance, they just buy them out.
Lesson number 5. Hype-driven growth is unsustainable without category ownership. Prime violated the fundamental laws of marketing and built on hype instead of differentiation. The result? Collapse was only a matter of time. In a moment, we'll see where Prime is now, but before that, let's break down the 5 biggest lessons everyone can learn from Prime's extraordinary rise and fall. Lesson number 1. Artificial scarcity creates artificial demand. Manufactured urgency works in the short term, but creates unsustainable expectations that eventually collapse. Lesson number 2. Identity marketing requires authentic differentiation. You can't build lasting brands on borrowed credibility from celebrity endorsements alone. Lesson number 3. Category positioning beats celebrity positioning. Fighting established giants in their strongest market is strategic suicide without superior resources. Lesson number 4. Hype signals weakness, not strength. Excessive buzz often masks fundamental problems with the product or its positioning. And finally, lesson number 5, viral moments don't equal sustainable business models. Social media success doesn't automatically translate to long-term market viability. Today, Prime technically still...
Again, I think the only company that's managed to kind of break that last rule is Red Bull, because their entire brand is built off of insane viral stunt moments that they sponsor. And then Red Bull has their name on like the dude that jumped out of a spaceship at the edge of the atmosphere, and then that other guy that rode his bike on the train. Like the train was moving and the bike was stationary and he was just like bouncing up and down. Insane video. But that's the kind of stuff Red Bull sponsors. Like, is it cool and could it go viral? Yeah, Red Bull will sponsor it.
Exists, but it has become exactly what marketing theory predicted, a cautionary tale about confusing viral success with sustainable strategy. Fads are short-term. They hit like a wave, generate a lot of hype, saturate the market, and fade as quickly as they rose.
I guess Prime could be kind of like the silly bands of the bracelet world. It was big, exploded, everybody had one, everybody wanted one, and then after a little while, people were like, actually, this isn't as good as just like a normal plastic band or bracelet that I would have around my wrist. So I'm gonna go back to that. And now I haven't seen a silly band in like 5 years.
Al Reyes and Jack Trout. In the end, Prime didn't fall for lack of hype, it drowned in it. They mistook noise for strategy and momentum for foundation, and in business, no matter how loud the moment, it's the fundamentals that decides who survives. Now, if you found value in this breakdown of Prime's billion-dollar rise and fall, hit that like button and subscribe to the Philosophy of Marketing.
That was the $1.2 billion collapse of Prime by the Philosophy of Marketing. Great video. Thanks for watching.